Hi, I'm going to talk about writing formal lab reports, just the introduction section. So the introduction would occur after the scientist who wants to read your lab has determined that they in fact do want to read your lab. They've read the title, they've read the abstract, and they've determined that it is something that is relevant to what they're researching. So the introduction needs to do a good job of providing all the information they would need about your lab. That being said, you need a purpose. You need to state the problem and purpose, and that needs to be clear. This is like in an English essay, the thesis statement. You need to be able to identify this is the purpose of this lab. You also are going to have some research, so that some background information that would be required to perform the lab is stated, and some relevance. Why are you doing the lab? Since you're going to be doing some research and talking about a little bit of the history or relevance, you're going to need a works cited page for this section. And that will include, as you go through the lab, embedded citations. Use APA formatting for high school level science reports. We're going to talk about that in a second. You should end with the clear purpose statement or a restated or shortened version of your purpose statement if you stated it initially, and some hypothesis. Now, if a hypothesis wasn't required for your lab report, it does not need to be included. The purpose statement does the job. So, here we're going to break down kind of where you want to go. You want to describe the problem or purpose that is being investigated and state some relevant information as to why this is being investigated. Why does someone reading your lab care about, could be titrations, could be esterification, limiting reactants, percent yield, some stoichiometry concepts, whatever it may be. Why is it relevant? Is it used in industry? Is it used currently in some sort of medical study? What about those key concepts that you're going to be discussing made it relevant to you actually learning the concepts? So this should kind of be the first 2 points, could be in a small opening, and then you should go into all the historical and theoretical background that you need. It says use embedded citations when you had to research something. If your lab is about I said titration, so I'll use that as another example. If you're doing a lab on a titration, you need to define what that is. What indicators are you using? What is an indicator? Does it have a buffer region? State that buffer region and then cite where you got all that information. You need to do this for every different component within that lab. So this could be broken down into a few different paragraphs depending on the complexity of the lab that you're doing. If you are doing calculations as part of your lab, you should introduce the formulas here. And remember, when you're writing a formula, you should have the formula centered on your report with the actual formula, and below it, figure 1, and then the title to state the formula. So figure 1, dilution formula, something like that, so that in your discussion and in your results and any other time you are referring back to your formula, you can just state using the formula in figure 1, and then readers would go back to the introduction to see what that is. If you have multiple figures, they should be chronologically numbered so that it makes sense. Give a clear hypothesis if appropriate. Your whole introduction should probably fit on 1 page. You can go slightly more if you have figures or calculations or a bunch of embedded citations, but it shouldn't go too much further than 1 full page. As far as references go, always use APA formatting for all grade 11 and 12 scientific formal lab reports. You should mention any source that you've used. You should have all of them reference our works cited page at the back, as well as the embedded citations, and make sure that they are appropriate references for your level. Don't be using someone else's random web page that doesn't have a scientific background. That being said, I wanted to talk about a few other little points that are always forgotten in labs. Always write, no matter what section you're doing, in past tense. Never use personal pronouns. That's we, are, they. Don't refer to the class or the group or the steps or the activity that was done. You should just state the facts. And keep all your writing formal. Don't use slang. Don't use a passive voice. Just keep it very structured. You're not telling a story, you're stating the facts. And when you're doing a lab introduction, you are stating a lot of information that has obviously been discovered, so past tense tends to be a little easier. But if it's a theory, like you want to define something, then that can be just the state. Like exothermic reactions are when energy is released. So you can say exothermic reactions are, which is kind of present, but then energy is being released, which is past. People get confused with those concepts there. Always stick with past tense, but you can kind of make it work when you're stating theories to use just the factual wording of the definitions. Thank you.